Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's the. I don't know if you guys have any other classes you do presentations in. Maybe public speaking. That's one required class. So the idea being you present your stuff and then act like you know it. At least have your note cards and then talk about it. And then you do anything out in the field for agriculture?
Not yet. I still have to, the next year, the classes and stuff.
Okay. Well, I was just cruising through our last bits on Medicare and Medicaid. Oh yeah, state matching. So in social work, and that's what this class is under, a lot of funding comes from Medicaid. Do you have like a thumb drive, or did you want to log in? You can log in. Whatever's easiest. Log in from there if you want. If Google works.
Into Google?
Yeah, or is that where you had it saved? Like
I don't know.
Google Slides? Or if you turn it on Schoology, I can try to download it. Yeah, you can like switch users. You guys save everything in Google usually?
I think.
One more month, that's it. I know. I think everybody is. I'm teaching a couple
Is that
summer
my
classes.
password? No, my
Don't
password.
you hate when you have to remember your passwords? That's the worst. I know. Did you turn it on Schoology?
No.
If you do, I could pull it up that way.
Okay, because I don't know my password. I ain't about to-
I know. I always have to remember my password. That's why it's so hard to remember. Because, yeah, I can pop it into Schoology. Get another presentation done. See if it logs me in, too. Schoology. Oh, man. You guys are not the W class. You're the hybrid class. That's right.
So you spend a lot on gas every day, huh?
Turn it. My bad. I just started lazy.
But I used that government subsidy to buy this car.
Where do I turn it in at?
You can turn in where like the discussion board that says your video of you presenting your presentation. So I got this. They give you some money to buy it. I think they give you $7,000. I leased it because it was $335 a month. It doesn't take any gas, but the fuel is I have solar panels on my roofs. That charges it up, and then I charge over here. So I just charge back and forth between work and because they actually had this. I think it was. They said it was 45, but they always lie about the price of cars. So I'm going to pay them 12 over 3 years, which is like $335 a month. But I save 100 in gas, so it's to me it feels like $235 a month. because I'm not buying gas. And then in 3 years, I can buy it out for $18,000, which I probably do another loan, which might be, if it's cheap, I'll do like, it probably would still be $335 a month. And these get 230 miles of range. I drive 61 back and forth and just charge it. And that's what I do. It works. The government still gives you $7,000 to buy these things.
What color did you get?
The only one they had for the cheap price I wanted was white. I like to have gray, is that you don't have to wash it as much, like silver or gray, but all they had was white. They look better. They used to look real ugly. Now they're not as ugly. They're kind of like, actually, I think I got that one. So it's not as fancy as you would want, but you're not buying all that gas. I'll take that any day. Kind of looks like a hatchback.
I'll put it on.
Okay. Let's see. Probably would even say you did that there, and it's probably at the bottom, right? And then that, and then once it downloads, oh wow, okay. I think you just roll it from there. Roll the tape. That way.
I don't think I put everything in this PowerPoint, but
Put
it's
what?
okay. Like enough.
Well, you could talk about it though too. Like you can share any research or articles or look one up if you have to.
Racial profiling. Does I say my name?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Racial profiling. Joisha Hogan. That's some pictures. What is racial profiling? Racial profiling refers to discriminatory practice by law enforcement officials of targeting individuals for suspicions of crime based on the individual's race, ethnicity, religion, or national origin. It can be African American, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, anything except white. Like police problems, like two main arguments: the police intentions and the consequences in creating inequality for certain groups due to racial profiling. Arguable, those victims of racial profiling will begin to lose faith in the police. The problem is if the profiling is personal or influenced by an organization and hard to distinguish the improper use of the race by police. There are mechanisms that can lead to racial conflicts in the police treatment: prejudice, cognitive bias, and stereotyping race-based deployment. Police that work more on the street level over time will begin to develop stereotypical opinions of certain groups. Many police state police culture when justifying their actions. Their police culture is affected by environment, political, and government factors. The social gaps between white and blacks persist in the United States. Blacks remain twice as likely to be unemployed.
Hey, my bad. I was supposed to ask, like, do they got something to zoom it in?
Huh?
To zoom it in?
There you go.
You can see that?
Yes.
Okay. Blacks remain twice as likely to be unemployed, 3 times more likely to live in poverty, and more than 6 times likely to be in prison compared to with whites. That's a little graph. These are some videos. I could have put more, but
Yeah, you can play.
play it.
What would you do to keep a pair of these? Would you break your sunglasses?
Can I skip some?
What's that?
Can I skip some?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's fine.
Curry Parkway, UV, with Edward Andrews Union, 798. Go to mail, 700 block and half. Hi, sir. Yes, I'm Officer to West Point Police Department. The reason why I'm talking to you today is someone called in about you. Are you handing out flyers?
What am I doing wrong?
I didn't know, people were concerned.
Yeah, concerned for what?
Their neighborhoods.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second, Rick.
So it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I know, I'm just trying to figure out what we were concerned about.
Well, in West Des Moines, we have a soliciting ordinance, so if you're knocking on people's doors,
Yeah, soliciting is what, offering services?
Yeah.
I'm not offering a service.
okay.
Okay, so with that being said, I'd like you to leave me alone, sir. I've not broken any laws.
Well, I'm still doing an investigation, because if you're recording, I'm still recording too, so it's okay.
Investigating what, sir?
A suspicious person, they called in about you.
Okay.
Do you have ID with you?
No, I don't.
Do you have your name? Have your name?
No. Am I under arrest?
No.
Okay.
I'm investigating.
Then what, I have no reason to talk to me, right?
I can't, actually, yes, you're a suspicious person. Someone called in about,
Suspicious how?
a neighbor called over here, so I don't understand why you're being difficult about this.
I'm not being difficult about anything, because I haven't done anything out of it.
Okay,
So with that being said, I'll go about my business.
okay, I'm not done with you, you're not free to go.
Have I done any, have I broken any laws?
Can you send me one this way, please? You're
Have
gonna
I broken
cooperate.
any laws, sir?
I'm talking to you, I'm not done, I'm investigating a suspicious person.
Have I not done?
Stop,
Okay.
stop now.
For
I
what?
can detain you, stop,
For what?
because you're not listening. I'm investigating a suspicious person, stop now.
Sir, have I broken any laws?
Stop,
Tell me what laws I broke.
I told you to stop,
I don't have to stop.
yes.
You know I don't. Either arrest me, tell me what laws I broke.
He's step it up, he's being uncooperative and trying to walk away from me. He won't identify himself as a suspicious person, investigating.
I know wrong. That's what he said about not broken any laws, you have no reason to think.
Stop,
Can I ask you one more time?
I'm
So,
gonna tell you to stop.
for what?
Whenever I'm talking to you and you're,
That's wrong.
I just told you I'm investigating who you are.
Harassing me.
5700 block of Aspen. Stop, I'm telling you to stop, and I'm not gonna tell you again.
And what will you do if I don't stop?
I will detain you.
Detain me for what?
You're not listening. I'm doing an investigation of a suspicious person.
A suspicious person, have I broken any laws?
That's not the point.
Any laws?
Someone called you as a suspicious person.
Okay, and? You're gonna be a suspicious person? Mr. Ray?
Really?
I feel like you're a suspicious person.
How would I be suspicious?
You look suspicious to me.
Okay, how would that be?
You're a white man. You're suspicious to me.
I'm suspicious to you because I'm a white person.
Yeah, with a gun. You're suspicious to me.
No,
Now,
stop.
I haven't done anything out of the way. You can't arrest me. Arrest me right now if you want to.
Here, turn around for me right now.
For what?
Because you're not, stop,
What
turn around.
have I done
Because
wrong?
you're not listening
What
to me.
have I done wrong, sir?
Your hand, it's just on my face. Because you're not, I'm investigating a
Sir, what
suspicious
have
person.
I done wrong? I'm not suspicious. I haven't done anything. I'm walking up the street. I haven't done anything wrong. I don't have
Neighbors
any.
have called on you.
Sir, I don't care if anyone is called on me. This is not their area. The
This is
street.
actually it's a public roadway, so
Oh,
this
okay. It's a public roadway. That means that I have the right to be on this roadway. Yes or no?
everybody has the right to be on the public
Okay,
roadway.
so I'm not a.
But you don't have a right to be on anybody else's property or privilege.
I'm not on anybody's property.
Why would someone call it in?
That's their concern.
So for their
Hello,
concern.
listen, I'm recording right now because this
So
police
then-
officer just walked up on me saying I'm a suspicious person. He was gonna do things for whatever reason.
Because you're not listening.
Listen, so I don't know how y'all do things here, but I'm.
Where are you from?
Recording, so.
Okay. And y'all seen the George Floyd one, right?
What ends up happening to that guy? Is it?
To George Floyd?
Well, not George.
Oh, to
Yeah.
they arrest him. Well, he get arrested And that was really the end.
Okay. I'm curious, now you've got me curious, like, if you follow up on the case, what happened?
No, they didn't never say a name, so I don't.
Okay.
didn't.
Cause it almost, who put up the YouTube? Was it the kid? And not to interrupt you too
It
long,
was-
now you've got me super curious, cause that was interesting.
Burton University makes it possible.
KCCI.
So it was in Iowa, West Des Moines, Iowa, or was that in,
Yes.
and then if you click show more, I am curious if. Huh, okay, and that was, it looks like it was now 2.5 years ago, yeah, the
Yep,
fall.
2018.
It's got me curious, but, okay, that's fine, you can continue on. I just don't, what do you guys think happened if we did a commentary? Like, what ended up, did they probably just have to let him go, as there are no charges?
Most likely, they had. That's
Yeah, he could, yeah, it looked like he was filming, so he's got evidence. But that's where I'm curious, like, do you think he got a settlement for it, or?
you probably did. If
Okay.
you, I don't know.
Right, all right, well, you can continue on, sorry to interrupt.
And then here some claims, the Fourth Amendment, reasonable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot based on experience, observations, insights, or information from others. Suspects can be briefly detained by means of physical force or by show of authority. First is an easy path once a stop is effected. The 14th Amendment, race alone cannot justify intrusion. Race is part of the suspect description can justify a stop. Race cannot be a basis of reasonable suspicion apart from another factor.
So those are all Supreme Court cases, and they're good citations. And so you guys want to know your Fourth Amendment, right? Like, they can't stop you if you need to have a taillight out, your license plate needs to be expired, or you make a wrong turn or speed or whatever. But if none of that happened, they're not really supposed to stop you. If they do stop you for those, you know, if they smell weed, they can search, but if they don't smell weed, like, they need more of a reasonable suspicion to bring the dogs and stuff, so.
Where it happens, anywhere. While walking, driving, standing, sitting. If you're in the wrong location, we ain't gotta be at the wrong location. You in the right location. They just think you look different.
Mhm.
Take you as a threat. And then here go where I got my information and stuff from.
Some other, okay. Yes, I do feel like even now in America, they're gonna add a new one for us all, that we might all need to be vaccinated, or else they'll, like, not let us places. and travel.
Vaccinated. For what?
COVID.
They
So
can't
that might be
vaccinate
another
everybody.
additional one. I don't really want a vaccine either, so that might be something that they'll just hold against all of us. And then in undergrad, I did a research study similar to this, but it was called prejudice based off of physical appearance. And I used to have, like, dreadlocks and long hair, and I took a picture and sent it to the dorms. And then I cleaned up. Was that? Yeah. Then I took a picture in, like, a business suit, and I sent them both to dorms and said, what do you think his GPA is? What do you think his GPA is? What do you think? How many nights a week does he drink? How many nights a week does he drink? And how many nights a week does he do drugs? And they actually said the dude with the dreads and long hair would be way worse and a lower GPA, and then the dude with clean cut and business suit, you know, similar, would have a higher GPA, and it was the same person. So it was, you know, just interesting to show. I know that that's just one example I did that in my undergrad, but yeah, it's still, like, all over definitely exists. I hope they don't do it with the COVID vaccine, because that's going to freak me out. Any of you guys get the vaccine?
No. I'm not gonna get no vaccine
I know, I
either.
don't think anybody wants to get it. because it's not FDA approved. Do you have any questions?
Good for
And yeah, hopefully, we get, that's what you wrote your paper on then too?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, cool, yeah, I'll, dig into the next part. I was gonna say, these are, is that the same one that we already watched?
No, that was,
It's another one?
no, that's just, where I got like.
Oh, on YouTube. Okay, right. All right, that's cool. Yeah, it's good because we definitely need to make sure, and different policy on stuff is important to have. The proper everything that we've got going on. And oh yeah, so you can also reply to that, or like you could paste the video from this class, and then you got the video of you presenting it.
Huh?
You could paste the video on YouTube of this class, so now you've got a video of you presenting it. It's probably in here. It would be weird as it'll probably show up as a live stream. Like if you go in. Yeah. So this will be weird because this is us.
So this will be weird because this is us.
All right. But you know where to get that. If you go to like the channel is the same one as what I've used in the past. So like say you go to here, that's an old one. You can just go to the channel and find it.
Hey everyone.
Which would be, well, today. So that's the live one today. Any questions yourself about class, the final paper, the final essay on things?
What is the final paper of? I remember seeing it.
It's basically exposure to a policy that, it's a reflection paper. So select and introduce a policy area like a law, regulation, or a court case. And you could use some of the stuff you just presented on, like those 14th Amendment and the 4th Amendment cases. Mostly the 4th Amendment is discrimination cases that you've encountered in work, life, or your community. You'll narrate your experience with the policy, telling the reader all that you know experientially about the policy, and then in terms of context, background, history, anecdotal evidence, and popular opinion. And you can cover it in 3 pages, so like 5 with APA, and using those court cases that you had. So I forget which ones you have, but some of them are pretty good. Like this one, I feel like if you, Daniels et al., let's just type that. I feel like that went to the Supreme Court. So you could use those as some, it would be Stone versus Dan. That was also in Oklahoma too. So, and this one, it was tract of land. You guys ever looked up court cases before? It's kind of tricky. You have to do it in criminal justice. Versus Onita. So yeah, any policy that you've had an experience with, and it could be, that's a city. So you could use this one as like the citation. Brought to the U.S. District Court in New York. So this was 93. Residents question an effort by law enforcement to question every black resident of the town in a criminal investigation filed a class action lawsuit against the city. So they were suing the cops, and the court dismissed the claims, holding that police may question members of a specific minority group based on witness physical description. The ruling has been criticized as upholding racial profiling law enforcement. Interesting. So this one actually is to show the other side, it looks like. In the morning, another police received a report that an individual with a knife broke into the private home within the city. A woman sleeping inside awoke and struggled with the intruder, who quickly fled the scene. The woman in her report admitted while she had not seen the intruder's face, she had witnessed a dark-skinned forearm. She also allegedly reported that during her struggle with the intruder, they had cut their own hand. Police also reported she believed the intruder was a young male, and from the speed at which he moved. So a K-9 unit went out. Intruders sent a few hundred yards away from the residence towards the State University of New York College. Suspecting an individual to be a student, police decided to question each African-American male enrolled at the university, Jesus, using a list provided by the school nicknamed the Blacklist. Police approached Black students on and off campus, asking for each to provide an alibi and show their hands for possible cuts. So this was only 25 years ago. I mean, this isn't that long ago. It was 1993. Finding no clear suspects, the police chose to conduct a citywide sweep. Wow, this sounds like Nazi Germany.
All black people?
Yeah, it sounds like it. This is Nazi Germany, which is a mess. It sounds like 1939. And so, yeah, of all of Juaneta's African-American residents, one police officer told reporters the purpose of the sweep was to examine the hands of all Black people in the community. That's just like seriously Nazi Germany. During the sweep, where they like draw the swastika, or what do? They put the number on the Jews' arms. During the sweep, the police cars occupied by Black individuals prevented Black individuals from boarding buses unless they participated in the physical exam and questioning. This also sounds like the COVID vaccine, like if you don't take that. More than 300 individuals were questioned alive. So the case was, they sued them, and all right, it went to the district court. So first you have to start local. If you had something happen here in Xenia, you go to downtown Xenia. Then you go to the district court, and that is Northern District of New York. So they dismissed the plaintiff's equal protection claims. That is the 14th Amendment that you were citing, equal protection under the law, writing that the clause is essentially a direction that all persons similarly situated be treated alike, and the plaintiffs had failed to identify a similarly situated class of non-minorities. So the equal protection clause says you would have to look at everybody's arm and see if it was cut, not just people of color. That had been treated differently. The U.S. Court of Appeals, so then they went to the next level of court. You appeal it. U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second District upheld the law enforcement's actions and dismissed the plaintiff's claims. That took 6 years. That was 1999, maybe when some of you guys were starting to be conceived. Ruling that use of race-based declassification in identifying suspects and instances when use of such classification would prove efficient did not violate the Constitution, although it may prove to have a disparate impact on small minority groups. The ruling asserted that actions represented efficiency policing over racial bias, such as primarily Black community with very few white residents, and the search were for a young white male. The impact would be reversed. And there's discrepancies with the records. So obviously CBS got stuff a few years later. This was in 2002 to look up their investigation from 10 years ago and showed that, it was messed up. So here's the criticism. The original investigation and subsequent rulings have faced significant criticism for their alleged use and support of racial profiling and Black community criminality in policing. Stanford law professor Richard Banks and journalist Lynn Duke have written extensively on such. So those are probably their articles. Those might be good citations for you, actually. Those actually are probably, so this case actually is arguing it's okay to profile, basically. But if you like looked up, well, yeah, these are articles that are criticizing the case. So yeah, if you want to, like the story of Brown versus City of Onetta, the uncertain meaning of racially discriminatory policing under the Equal Protection Clause. So that's the 14th Amendment. The other part is Brothers of the Blacklist. In 2014, feature-length documentary, now that's got to be interesting. Brothers of the Blacklist detailed the events of the case and preceding incidents. The film was directed by Sean Gallagher, a graduate of that university, and filmmaker John Dem. So he might have actually been one of the guys that they pulled out and looked at his arms. And that's weird. Wasn't that supposed to be the link to the trailer? So, hello, you're okay. I thought they were going to give us the actual movie. I guess you would have to search that actual film if you wanted a citation from there. So the film is called Brothers of the Blacklist on the 1992 Southern University of New York Onetta attempted rape case. So it was an attempted rape on a woman. She cut his arm, so then they basically searched everyone in the university and then the city for a cut. And just because she said he had a darker arm, they went ahead and searched just people of color. And they should have searched everyone. You know what I mean? Like if they really were to do true search and seizure laws, they should be doing a search based off of everyone who may have been cut. So those are good. You know, you would probably want to look up the criticisms of this. So that's interesting. They actually found out that race alone can justify intrusion. So just food for thought. And then U.S. versus Wren and U.S. versus Bragoni Ponce. Let's get into those, and then we'll call it today. U.S. versus Wren. So which one did you guys look up for criminal justice? Are you doing?
Well, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Right, that's okay. I'm just curious because it is, you know, I studied law school for a while. I didn't like it that much, but the cases are interesting because this one is unanimous U.S. Supreme. So this was Supreme Court. Declared any traffic offense committed by a driver was a legitimate legal bias for a stop. So this is what I'm saying. You have to run a red light. You have to be speeding. You have to have a broken taillight, or you have to have an expired tag. One time I got pulled over because I had temporary tags, and the cop said, "Your car's registered to a black man." I was like, "Excuse me?" Like, he's like, "So I pulled you over because the car's registered to a black man." I'm like, "Okay." I bought it. It had temporary tags. He's like, "Well, you just might want to check with the dealership because your car's registered to a black man." He's like, "Go on." And he left. And I don't know. I still don't know how to interpret that whole situation. Like, I lived in the city I grew up in, Cincinnati, in Kennedy Heights, which is a very mixed neighborhood. He, I guess, maybe couldn't see into my car, but saw I had temporary tags. So he pulled me over. It wasn't tinted, but you couldn't see in just because he might have been behind me or something. And it was night out. You know what I mean? So, and I usually actually keep my shit dim, as I don't like people looking inside my car, but I don't tip my windows. But he was like, I don't know what the heck happened. You know what I mean? And I always say, like, what would happen if I was a black man? Like, that's still no reason to pull somebody over. You know, there's no way he could have seen me and seen that I was white. He said, your car was registered to a black man. So I thought I was busted for speeding because usually I go like 10 or 15 over. But he was like, go on. So this case is Supreme Court. It says you have to break the law. And that's why it's always best to just, I use cruise control everywhere I go. That way you at least are going speed limit, maybe 5 or 7 over, and not get pulled over in the first place.
I'm scared I'm gonna get pulled over. I'm
Yeah.
speeding.
Right,
Speeding.
right.
They'll never pull me over.
So this is the case, and this is recent. It's the past 25 years also. Antonin Scalia, which I think that dude's dead now, but he was a Supreme Court justice, held that search and seizure is not a violation of the Fourth Amendment in cases where police officers have reasonable suspicions. That's where they got to smell beer on you or weed, because you're not supposed to drive with that, that a traffic violation has occurred. Reasonable suspicion. That's interesting. So the personal subjective motives of an officer are not a factor in the court's Fourth Amendment analysis of whether the cause for a stop is sufficient, because they're not supposed to stop and detain you and your property unless, again, there's reasonable suspicion of you causing a crime. So the standard for reasonable suspicion is purely objective. So that's where it gets murky. They can be like, well, I saw you at the stop sign and you didn't count to 3. Usually I stop like 1 second, but you're supposed to stop 3 seconds at a stop sign, I think. A main concern of this case is that police conducting traffic stops may profile based on race. It also interprets the Fourth Amendment. Both petitioners believe that a traffic stop did not warrant a search of their vehicle for their arrest, and similar complaints and outrage about New York City's stop and frisk, because that was recent too, wasn't it? They just had stop and frisk until like 2005 or 2010. You guys ever heard of that one?
Stop at first.
Yep. So this one is the practice of temporarily detaining, questioning at times. Yeah, up until 2016. So they were allowed to do this in New York. They could just stop and frisk you for weapons or other contraband. This was known in other places in the U.S. versus Terry stop, as the Terry stop. Rules for the policy contain that the criminal procedure is based off the Supreme Court in Ohio. So they stopped 12,000 people, and so somebody must have analyzed this between 2003 and 2013. So this is even when you guys are old enough to remember. Stops were made and 680,000 people stopped in 2011. The program became subject of racial profiling controversy. So 90% stopped were African American or Latino. That was in New York. Mostly 14 to 24. 70% stopped were later found to be innocent. So that there alone backs up your case that they're stopping mostly innocent people anyway. They have a citation, which is good. By contrast, 54% of the population of New York City was African American or Latino. So they're stopping 90%, or 90% of those stopped are people of color. But only 50% of the city, 54, is people of color. 74% of individuals arrested overall were of those two racial groups. So this looks like it went through the court systems also. This isn't one of the ones you cited, though. I just pulled this one out. Because that, and then the last one, which I can't even spell that guy, Burgoni Ponce, U.S. versus Burgoni Ponce. So there's at least precedent for all of these cases. At least they spelled it for me, right? So the last case, this was actually right before I was born. In 75, the case of the Supreme Court determined it was a violation of the Fourth Amendment for roving patrol car to stop a vehicle solely on the basis of the driver appearing to be of Mexican descent. Same problem. Like they're like, oh, you're driving while Mexican, I'm pulling you over. And that's clearly profiling. So a roving patrol car must have articulatable facts, if I could even say the word, that allow for an officer to have reasonable suspicion, like you sped or you ran a red light, carrying illegal aliens beyond their ethnicity. So this one probably was down in Texas or a border state. The court handed down a 9-0 decision that affirmed the circuit's court. So here's what the case was. And part of normal procedure, Border Patrol in Southern California, so they're by like San Diego, permanent traffic checkpoint set up on Interstate 5. I got stopped at one of these once, and the dude spoke to me in Spanish because I had been in the sun for a week hiking, and he thought I could speak Spanish, but I said, dude, I'm an American. And he just stopped questioning me. But clearly they were doing this, and this even happened, that was in 2002 when they stopped me. They wanted to search my trunk and my coolers and all that. The checkpoint had been closed because of inclement weather. So the officers sat on the side of the highway with their vehicle with their headlights facing northbound. So when they set up those checkpoints, they're allowed to do that, but they have to stop every single person that goes through. Does that make sense? So what they're saying here is the checkpoint closed and the cops are just like, oh, that dude, and they just pull them over, and they're not allowed to do that. They sat on the side of the highway with their headlights facing northbound traffic. They pursued a vehicle with 3 occupants in it, stating their only reason for pursuing the vehicle was because the occupants' apparent Mexican ethnicity. The officers questioned Felix Humberto Bergoni Ponce and his 2 passengers about their citizenship, discovered that his 2 passengers entered the country illegally. So they're busting illegal aliens, which is another policy topic we have in this class. The officers proceeded to arrest the 3 individuals. The driver was charged with 2 counts of knowingly transporting illegal immigrants, a violation of 274 in the Immigration Nationality Act. But if they were stopped illegally in the first place, the dude could probably drop the charges. At the trial for the defendant, he argued that the 2 passengers should not have to testify because their statements were the result of illegal seizure. They shouldn't have stopped him. But his motion was denied. The 2 passengers testified, and the defendant was found guilty on both counts. The defendant then appealed the decision, saying that because the stop was based solely on the basis of his ethnicity, that it was a violation of the 4th Amendment rights. The 4th Amendment protects a person from unreasonable search and seizures. So that's always 4th and 5th Amendment rights protect you from unreasonable search and seizures in our first 10 amendments. So the Border Patrol derived its power to stop individuals from 2 separate laws. The first was Section 287, Immigration Nationality. It authorized police to stop without warrant to interrogate any alien or person believed to be an alien, which authorities warrant to siege. But these were cops. They're not. Well, maybe they are Border Patrol. From this, they believe their actions were lawful, even if the act in Congress cannot separate it. So here's what the court said. The court's decision was they held a search and seizure based solely on the appearance of Mexican ancestry violates the 4th Amendment. Thank goodness. Without reasonable suspicion generated by articulable facts. They always go back to this Ohio case, which has me curious now. That's a landmark one, the stop and frisk. Okay. Under appropriate circumstances, roving patrol may perform a limited search and seizure without probable cause to arrest a person. These circumstances include information that the person may have drugs or weapons. A visual scan of the person's vehicle reveals something suspicious, or as in this case, believe the person is carrying illegals. Valid examples. So they basically found that you can't just say, all right, you're Mexican, pull over. So he probably was not charged, and that's kind of their finding. And that's where we get our laws, our case laws, and our policies all come from either Congress, Supreme Court, Senate, or House of Representatives, and then the president can do like veto and what do they call those? Executive orders, where they just sign it into law. So, and then it looks like they are all based off of a Ohio case, which is interesting. And that was 10 years before I was born, but the court ruled that it is not constitutional for American police to stop and frisk a person they reasonably suspect to be armed and involved in a crime. So this might not even have to do with race, but it says specifically the decision held that is not, okay, they are allowed to stop them. Specifically, the decision it held that it is not a violation of the Fourth Amendment in the Constitution, prohibition on unreasonable search and seizures when a police officer stops a suspect on the street and questions him or her, even without probable cause, so long as the police officer has a reasonable suspicion the person is committing or is about to commit a crime. The court also ruled that police officer may perform a quick surface search of the person's outer clothing for weapons. I usually like that. If they have a reasonable suspicion that the person stopped is armed and presently dangerous. This reasonable suspicion must be based on specific and articulable facts. So that's like your key words in that finding. Like they have to say like, well, yeah, I saw he had a sawed-off shotgun hanging out of his coat. I saw it. I could tell it was a sawed-off shotgun. I didn't want him to shoot the lady, so I stopped him. So they have to be able to have specific and articulable facts and not upon an officer's hunch. Like, that dude just stared down that lady funny, and I think he wants to rape her, so I'm going to go stop him. So they can't do that, but if they've like a shotgun hanging out of their jacket, this permitted police action subsequently referred to a stop and frisk or a Terry frisk. Terry standard was later extended to temporary detentions of persons and vehicles known as traffic stops. So,
Some police in Ohio, they do search for no reason.
yep.
Last,
But you gave them permission, right? Because
time,
if you give them permission, they're allowed to. That's when you got to say, nope.
no, not really. Last year me and my friends got Airbnb to Cincinnati,
Mm-hmm.
and then we was driving to Target and everything like that, and we got in a car accident. We wasn't the cause; they was the cause. But we ended up, I was driving, so we ended up getting a ticket. I guess for failing to yield at a stop sign.
Really? Okay.
And then so how they hit us, it's like we was at the stop sign and they was coming this way. They don't have a stop sign. But it's like they stopped. And so I waited. And so I went and then they pulled up, so I stopped again. And I'm like, I'm not about to keep playing with them. They stopped. And so I just went and then they just went. And it was like two trucks. I had
What?
a Jeep. And it's like the way that they hit, they came this way. And so we had turned towards Target. And they had just ran to the curb. And then when the police and stuff had came, they had searched my whole car.
Did they find anything?
No, there was nothing in there.
I always
We
tell
went to Target
like,
because we left our sleeping clothes. But they didn't ask us, none of us, is we okay? They didn't ask nothing. They just, oh, how fast was you going? I wasn't going that fast. I wasn't the cause of this accident.
And they still cited you for the accident? Huh.
Because they said you had to stop sign, you failed to yield. I said, no, I'm not.
And that was in a parking lot? Is actually a weird place to get it, which is so yeah, I've definitely had weird cop situations, and it's annoying, you know what I mean? So like the more I dig into this, I like to know your laws, know your facts. I know some people have a way to get it out there, so you don't have to go out there not knowing. And anyway, that can be like one of the things that your final paper can be an experience of that, or a policy that, it could even be the vaccination. What if they go with a forced vaccination policy to be able to come on campus or to come, stuff like that. Several policies we encounter. The monetary policy where they gave us all $1,000, something that you this year had an experience with, or your parents, or someone in your family. Cover it, your thoughts about it. Do you think it will do good ultimately? Or it could just be like what you wrote about. Don't do the exact same thing in the paper, but if like WIC or food stamps or something is something a friend or anybody has gotten help with before, or even getting a public defender, that's another policy. So really any of the policies that are under the sun. So that's really your final paper is a reflection paper on the policy. It's not due till the end of the month. So any other questions on those or? Cool. I feel like that's all I've got. Because it's already 3:20. Wow. Cool. Well, thank you. And you guys both have a good middle of the week.